let's get started with Meg Linehan. Go ahead, Meg.
Hi, Crystal. Hope you're well. We've heard a lot from Vlaco that this roster is still experimental, right? That she believes is maybe a different approach than what we're used to seeing ahead of a major tournament. And I'm wondering if that same vibe is carrying across to you as a player, that this is still a little bit more of a work in progress rather than let's get ourselves settled into a groove before a major tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I think the girls in camp have been here before. So even though he used the term experimental, to me, I'm like, there's no one new here. Some, people have been here for only a short amount of time. Yes, maybe. But at the end of the day, I treat everybody in camp as if they are, picked for the roster. It's really important that everyone feels valuable, feels that they can contribute to the team, because that's what we ultimately need in order to be successful.
How are you feeling just in terms of the opponents are not necessarily the traditional ones that we have seen in SheBelieves Cup? Does that impact you at all, or is it still really, generally this team seems to be like, we're going to control ourselves and not necessarily worry about who we're up against?
You know us so well. Everything about our preparation is about us. It's not about the other team. We always know that even watching film, we can go over kind of some tendencies that teams might do, but we ultimately know when we get on the field, it could be a completely different game. So right now we are excited for these top opponents that we're playing up against. They're going to give us different challenges, and every game, every training is ultimately preparation for the Olympics. So I think everyone's excited to be here. We're excited to step on the field together and obviously hopefully win this tournament.
Thank you, Crystal.
And an ode to Crystal's past experience with Chelsea, let's go to Dan Pentland. Go ahead, Dan.
You must be a mind reader, Aaron. I was just going to ask about that. Thanks for having me as usual. Hello, Crystal.
Hello.
Just going back to your Chelsea period, I was looking at some of your images in action for them today, and it feels like you always had a smile on your face. You love the fans. What's your memories of your experiences there, and ultimately what's it done, in terms of contributing to your performances for the national team?
Yeah, I always, tell everybody my time at Chelsea was so special. It really challenged me in so many ways that I wouldn't have gotten if I had stayed in the NWSL. And I was really close with Emma Hayes, and she, really took me in, and the team was very welcoming. And I think it's a necessity to really put yourself in environments that seem uncomfortable at times, but ultimately you are going to grow. And I think when I came back to the NWSL, I was really prepared for all aspects of the game. I learned a lot about technical and tactical work in and around the Chelsea environment, and I felt like when I came back to the NWSL, I was able to bring all of what I learned into my new environment. So, for me, I've always been an athletic player, but it was about being more technical and being more tactical and just, being a well-rounded player. And I think playing overseas has really helped me become that.
Thanks, Dan. Let's go to Donald Wine. Go ahead, Donald.
Thank you. Hey, Crystal, how's it going? I think I noticed yesterday that you guys were able to watch Judas and the Black Messiah. If that's the case, first of all, I saw it last night. Thoughts on the movie, but also tying into what you guys have been doing with all the discussions of you as a team. Why did you feel important to watch that movie yesterday?
It was incredible. I am so happy that we had that opportunity to watch it as a team. I think it's really important that, people become even more educated on matters that they probably weren't educated on in school. I think I've been talking to a lot of girls, and I'm like, there's a reason, we celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day, but we don't really talk a whole lot about Malcolm X and Black Panthers. So I think it was a really great opportunity for people to understand that, the civil rights movement wasn't about only holding hands. It wasn't about marching. It was about a lot of, intense moments where it didn't seem pretty and it didn't look great. But ultimately speaking, those are important lessons that we all needed to learn. And I think watching it as a team it was incredible, because conversations are continuing and they're going to keep continuing. And I think that movie was able to change perspective and just, educate everybody as a whole.
Thanks. Let's go to Jonathan Tannenwald. Go ahead, JT.
Thanks, Aaron. Crystal, thanks as always for giving us a little bit of your time. We saw, I think all of us here saw your remarks recently with Forbes, the interview that you gave. And those of us who've known you for a long time knew that you haven't always been thrilled about playing left back. But you haven't always been as forthright as you were in that piece particularly. And I wonder if something has changed with you or overall or whatever it may be that made you feel a little bit empowered to step up and say it quite the way you did. And then I have a follow-up after that.
Yeah, the Forbes article I feel like was, the coming out party of, kind of like a new Crystal Dunn. I think I've always given the very soft answer of, yeah, I don't like playing left back, but I'm a team player. And all of that is so true. At the end of the day, I want to play. I want to represent my country. If that means playing as an outside back, then I'm game. But I think it's also important people realize what I deal with on a daily basis is very much different than most players. I transform to a different player basically when I am in this environment because I know my role is different. And then when I go to club, I'm almost feeling like more myself, playing freely, getting involved in the attack, and just, expressing myself in the way that I've always thought was the way I should be expressing myself. And, what I really wanted to get out of that article was letting people know that there is a side to me that's not always smiley, always dancing. And I think it was just time to kind of like let that loose and let people understand that as much as I am proud to represent my country, be on this team, right now, considering myself a starter, but always competing to stay on the field and become and remain a starter. I think people need to know that, I'll do what it takes to be on the field, even if that means that I am not particularly happy inside. But I do think of the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is winning an Olympic gold medal, wanting to be a part and being impactful on the field. And if that's at left back, then that's at left back.
Much appreciated. And the follow-up question that I have is, at least from the outside, I'm not a tactical savant or anything, but it seems like Vlatko's sort of tactical setup uses the position a little bit differently than how Jill's system did. Is that true or not? And if so, what's your sense of it?
Yeah, I think Vlatko's definitely introduced a lot of fluidity. I think he really understands that a lot of us do play slightly different roles sometimes in club and with the national team, and I think he's allowed people to feel as free as possible in that role. So for me, obviously being an outside back, I'm like, yeah, I get it, gotta defend, but I'm also like, I'm trying to get involved in that attack, and I think he understands that, and he's been great at really letting me kind of feel the game out and getting involved as much as I need to, but then also understanding ultimately I have to do what's best for the team. If that's staying connected to the back line and really just allowing the midfield and the front line to, do all the work offensively, then he understands that I am more inclined to just letting the players do what they have to do.
Awesome. Thanks, JT. Let's go to Steph Young. Go ahead, Steph.
Thanks, Aaron, and thanks, Crystal, for the time. Slightly less serious, although maybe actually much more serious question for you. Portland's recently been hit with some bad weather. Are you worried about your chickens? What are you doing for the girls?
Honestly, my husband is taking very good care of them. He put a heat lamp in their coop the other day, so they're thriving. They don't like to go out in the snow. I will say they've been cooped up. No pun intended. They've been cooped up all day, but they're good. They're survival animals. They can do what they need to do for themselves. They're easy.
And is Zara a fan of the snow as well?
She is. She's been outside. She's been wandering around. She doesn't stay out long, but she does like the feeling of the snow in her paws.
All right, thank you, and thank you for being one of the few cat lovers on a team that is
I
all
know.
about.
We need more
dogs.
of them. We need more of them.
Let's go to Sandra Herrera. Go ahead, Sandra.
All right, that's phase one. We got phase two almost. Hey, Crystal, thanks a lot for your time today. Appreciate it. Just to piggyback off Donald's question real quick, I just want to plug the Chicago Legend, shout out to Chairman Fred Hampton. If people are really interested, they're trying to do a Save the Hampton House in Chicago. There's a GoFundMe. I'll throw it on my Twitter for everybody to donate to. But to segue from that, to ask you maybe a little bit about another Chicago legend, Casey Krueger. She got back into these camps in light of Alana Cook not being there. She's kind of been out of the mix for a little bit. What kind of advice would you maybe give to a player like that, kind of getting back in, going at that OB position?
Yeah, I think everyone who's been on the national team has understood that you just have to stay ready so you don't have to get ready, and I think Casey coming into camp, she, looks great, looks like obviously she hasn't skipped a beat in any way, shape, or form. Not that I thought she ever would, but I think it just is a testament to her as a player that she's been doing everything she needs to be doing outside of this environment. And her being called in, she looks prepared, she looks ready, and she's been looking great. So it's exciting to see her back.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Crystal. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandra. Let's go to Ann. Speaking of Portland, let's go to Ann Peterson. Go ahead, Ann.
Hi, Crystal. I'm glad your chickens are doing well. And it's a snowy mess here. So just FYI, I can't leave my house. I'm kind of piggybacking on Jonathan Tannenwald's question. And you said, you're a whole new Crystal Dunn. Can you kind of tell me why you've been using your voice more lately? It seems like in the past year, you've been very vocal about a number of things. What was the genesis of you, having more confidence to speak your mind?
Yeah, I think, well, first and foremost, I think ever since I've been on the national team, I've always been an advocate for, Black women in soccer. For a long time when I first was a player on this team, there weren't a whole lot of us on the team. It was probably me and Kristen Press, and that was it. So I've always felt passionate about that. I've always carried myself in a way where I knew that I was playing more than just myself. With that being said, I think every athlete knows that we are blessed with a platform that goes beyond just being the athlete. But I do think you have to look at your career and also look at where you are in your career to also gain confidence in order to speak out more. And on this team, I wasn't always secure in my role. I wasn't always confident. I think first 3 years on the team, I was up, down kind of thing. I was a bench player. I was not called into camps. I was, my career wasn't really stable, I should say. And I think over the years, I've realized I believed in myself more. I felt like I was a consistent and valuable player on this team. And I think with that confidence, made me feel like I do have that responsibility to carry others and not just look at myself as, hey, I'm just here to survive. But I'm really here to thrive. I'm really here to represent Black women in this sport. And I'm also here to shine light on the idea that even though this space was not necessarily always created for us, we can survive here and we can also be elite. So I think over the last couple of years, what I've really felt was the opportunity and the responsibility to shed light on that idea versus just saying, oh, this sport is still predominantly white, but that's okay. No, I think my job here is to actually help those gain access to this sport and also want to be here and see themselves hopefully being on this platform.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ann. Thanks, Chris. Last couple for Crystal. Let's go to Alex Ozzie. Go ahead, Alex.
Hey, Crystal. I'm with On Her Turf and NBC Sports. A lot of great content that you've already touched on, and wanting to ask you a follow-up kind of about that idea about wanting to be the face of women's soccer. Like, I feel like there's a difference between, going out and having a great performance and thinking that you should be the face of women's soccer and saying to, people in the media, hey, I should be the face of women's soccer, to like saying it in an interview. And I'm curious just kind of like your thoughts on what it took you to get to that point to call for your own publicity.
So, the comments I made in the article was more geared towards the idea that the face of women's soccer, I think today still is a white woman. And I think we have to get over the idea that that is the only face that should be the representation of this sport. So for me, it doesn't even have to be me, but I think I am the one to push those boundaries and say, you know, we need to change the narrative of only white women play this sport, only white people play this sport. And so why I felt so strongly about the article I did is because everything that I do on the field, every time I carry myself from, you know, the training field into games, it's not even so much about my success, but it's the success of others coming after me. You know, so I want to be very clear that whether it is me who is ever considered a face of women's soccer, that really isn't my goal, but my goal is for the Black women coming after me to feel like they even have a chance to be the face of this sport.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Alex. Last one goes to Sydney Hunt. Go ahead, Sydney.
Hey, Crystal, how are you?
Good.
Good. Want to ask you, you know, you've mentioned a number of players, almost all the players really. No, they've been here before. They've been in this position before. As far as some of the younger players that haven't, specifically players like Katarina, what's your kind of message to them being one of those veteran players?
Yeah, one, it's scary to consider myself a veteran player, so thank you for making me nervous about that. No, you know, what I tell younger players is, you know, just really embrace the journey because, you know, regardless if you're feeling good, feeling confident right now, your career is going to be, you know, long enough where you're going to have ups and downs. And I think the worst thing you can do is always think that you're always going to be in the best form, always have, you know, great training sessions, because at the end of the day, everyone knows there's some off days, there's some off games, but it's about how you bounce back. It's about, you know, staying committed to really preparing and being at your best. And I think to all the young players, I think they definitely have a level of success, and that's obviously what got them called to this team, but that isn't necessarily what keeps you on this team. What keeps you on this team is being competitive, being accountable to your own game, and investing in yourself. Everyone here, I think, leaves this environment and does all the things that they need to do when no one's watching. And that's what they need to continuously do day in, day out to prepare themselves for coming back in this environment and ultimately staying on this team for a while.